Students who depend on the National Student Financial Aid Scheme are once again caught up in chaos. The organisation Undoing Tax Abuse says NSFAS must accelerate the investigation into CEO Andile Nongongo's involvement into payment scheme tenders. Now with us is Rudie, Heyneke, OUTA's investigation manager. Let's speak to him now about this. And Rudie, thank you so much for your time. A very warm good morning to you. As it stands, you've appealed for the investigations to be speediated, but how far are the investigations against NSFAS CEO Andile Nongongo?
Good morning, Tamilo. Yes, we welcome the announcement on Friday by the NSFAS board that they have appointed an external investigation team, Advocate Nkaitobi, as well as Attorney Sandile July. I think they are very experienced, and as the NSFAS press release said, that they're going to start their work today. So hopefully that will, speed up the process and the investigation against Mr. Nongongo, serious allegations that were made against him. Yes, we are very pleased about that.
With that being said, Rudie, I mean, how compromised are payment scheme tenders, I would say, at NSFAS? Because we've seen how much of chaos this issue around eNCA and the payment scheme towards students has brought about, amongst other things, protests at various institutions of higher learning. But I mean, how compromised are, these tender schemes?
I think one must remember that, the beneficiaries from NSFAS are the poorest of the poor. These young students, they really need every cent. And the four service providers that were appointed, I listened over the weekend, listened to the evaluation of the tender, and what they said there and what they promoted, what they have in place, are not what we are seeing on the ground currently, and that is a big concern, because students, expect now that they will get their allowances on a specific day. They will get their full allowances, but all of a sudden we see that students don't get their money. A lot of students are defunded. They're getting it late, and then the fees are extremely high. Although there's only a 12 Rand monthly fee, the transaction fees are very high, and this is very concerning. I think there are safer and better options, to pay the students and to pay their allowances.
And I suppose, Rudie, that's where some of the comments and grievances from students come in regarding particularly those fees where they say they are being exploited. Because you did give context. We're talking here about students who come from the poorest of the poor backgrounds, and now they've been made to pay these fees. And I suppose that's where the exploitation comes in.
Absolutely. NSFAS is forcing the students to use this payment solution. They haven't got a free choice. They cannot go to any of the commercial banks and say, I want to open up a bank account, NSFAS, please pay my allowance to this specific bank account. They are forced to use this specific payment solution. And that's the problem. No free choice. And if you have that free choice, you can go and choose the best product on the market, the cheapest product on the market. But unfortunately, here NSFAS say, if you want your allowance, you must use this solution. Otherwise, you will not receive your monthly allowance.
I want to talk about the now suspended, CEO. Reports suggesting that he's been placed on leave at the moment pending these investigations. There are reports suggesting that he may have a relationship with one of the companies that does business with NSFAS. Do you have any details about what this relationship may comprise of, and what's its close proximity with the said company?
OUTA did investigations on specific tenders when Mr. Nongongo was still the CEO at Services SETA. And there, or the individuals who are involved with one of the current service providers, they had a tender with Services SETA, more than one. And there, obviously, Mr. Nongongo was on the BAC. He was also part of the accounting authority. He authorized all the payments, huge payments, hugely overpriced. And this was, in the news, and it was publicly available from way back then. We also alerted NSFAS about this, but it didn't go anywhere, and this specific service provider was still appointed. So we do believe that, from the history of Mr. Nongogo back at the services CETA, where he came acquainted with these, or with this, the people with this service provider, that it is unfortunate that they are also appointed here for exactly the same thing that they did at services CETA, and we do believe that there's a conflict of interest.
Yeah. Rudie, before I let you go, you have made the call repeatedly for the investigations to be speediated. Should they not be? What are your concerns if these investigations still lurk and loom while we see these protests ongoing in our institutions of higher learning, at least some of them? What are your concerns should these investigations not speediated?
I think the biggest concern is that, the people involved here, the students, they are receiving the shortest end of the stick. It is in the middle of the academic year. These payments started, at the end of the first semester while they were busy with exams. I do not think that it is, to the advantage of the students, and it is a forced rollout that is, from NSFAS' side, they want to get on board these students onto this payment solution as soon as possible, where the tender documents said that it will be a phased-in process, so that we can see if everything is going according to plan. And this is the biggest problem. I think the students are the ones who are, really prejudiced by this system. And then the other thing is that the SIU received a proclamation to do an investigation into NSFAS in August last year. It's almost a year down the line. We do hope and we do believe that the SIU will also speed up their investigations. That's the only official investigation ongoing, except now for the NSFAS internal investigation. But we do hope that the SIU investigation will speed up and that we can have results very soon.
We leave it there. Rudie, Heyneke, thank you so much for joining us all the way from OUTA, calling for the investigation on NSFAS CEO, now placed on special leave, that's Andile Nongogo, to be expedited as students continue to be affected by this payment scheme, which has been, a result of many protests we've seen in some of our institutions of higher learning.